What if I told you that Texas is literally rising in the west while sinking along the coast? That beneath Dallas lies a buried forest from when the city was a prehistoric swamp, and that the entire state once sat at the bottom of a tropical sea? While a massive fault line visible from space cuts the state perfectly in half, this is 50 Texas geography facts you never knew, and a bunch you'll never forget. Fact 50. The landscape still moves. Texas isn't a finished product. Erosion carves new canyons, subsidence drops coastal land, and wind reshapes dunes every single day. The Rio Grande shifts its channel, sinkholes open without warning, and ancient fault lines still tremble. In a very real sense, the map of Texas is never truly complete. The state is a work in progress, constantly rewriting its own geography. Fact 49. Beneath Dallas lies a buried forest. When construction crews dig deep in Dallas, they sometimes hit ancient cypress stumps preserved in clay. These trees are over 20 million years old, from when the region was a warm, swampy lowland. The stumps are so well preserved that the wood grain is still visible. It's a reminder that the flat prairies of North Texas once looked more like Louisiana bayou country. Fact 48. Texas contains part of the Ogallala Aquifer. Beneath the flat plains of the Texas Panhandle lies one of the world's largest underground water reserves. The Ogallala Aquifer stretches from South Dakota to Texas, holding water that took thousands of years to accumulate. In Texas alone, it irrigates millions of acres of farmland, sustaining agriculture in one of the driest regions of the state. Without it, the high plains would be uninhabitable desert. Fact 47. The Gulf Stream brushes the Texas shelf. Warm ocean currents from the Caribbean don't just flow past Texas, they influence the state's weather hundreds of miles inland. The Gulf Stream's energy fuels the moisture that feeds thunderstorms, hurricanes, and the humid summers that define East Texas. This oceanic river shapes climate patterns across the entire state, connecting distant tropical waters to tornadoes spinning over the plains. Fact 46. The state's shape follows ancient Spanish land grants and rivers. Texas's borders aren't arbitrary lines drawn on a map. The Rio Grande defines the entire southern edge. The Red River marks the northern boundary with Oklahoma, and the Sabine River separates Texas from Louisiana. The Panhandle's straight edges are remnants of Spanish colonial claims and later U.S. territorial compromises. Geography and history shaped Texas together, creating a state with one of the most distinctive silhouettes in America. Fact 45. Texas is still rising, slowly. In West Texas, the land is gradually uplifting due to tectonic forces deep in the Earth's crust. This process, called tectonic rebound, raises the mountains and plateaus by fractions of an inch each year. Meanwhile, the Gulf Coast is sinking under its own weight, compressed by thick layers of sediment. The state is tilting like a slow-motion seesaw, with the west rising and the east falling. Fact 44. Marfa lights remain unexplained. For over a century, mysterious glowing orbs have appeared on the horizon near Marfa in West Texas. They dance, split, merge, and vanish without a pattern. Scientists have proposed atmospheric refraction, car headlights, or electrical discharges, but no theory fully explains them. The desert geography, with its layers of hot and cold air, creates optical conditions found almost nowhere else on Earth. Fact 43. Devil's Sinkhole drops 400 feet straight down. Near Rock Springs in the hill country, the ground suddenly opens into a vertical shaft that plunges deeper than a 40-story building. This massive collapsed sinkhole is home to one of the largest bat colonies in Texas, with over 3 million Mexican free-tailed bats roosting inside. Every evening at dusk, they spiral out of the hole in a living tornado, creating one of nature's most spectacular shows. Fact 42. The hill country's limestone caves number in the thousands. Beneath the rolling hills of central Texas lies a hidden world of caverns, tunnels, and underground rivers. Many remain unexplored, accessible only to experienced cave divers. These caves are part of the same karst system that feeds the state's famous springs, connecting distant watersheds through miles of subterranean passages. The landscape above is just the roof of a vast, water-carved labyrinth. Fact 41. Lightning strikes most frequently around Houston. The convergence of humid Gulf air, urban heat islands, and afternoon sea breezes creates the perfect storm for lightning. Houston and the surrounding coastal region experience more lightning strikes per square mile than anywhere else in Texas. Summer afternoons routinely explode with electrical storms, making the city one of the most lightning-prone areas in North America. Fact 40. Texas produces more wind energy than most countries. The state's geography is perfectly designed for wind power. Consistent, powerful winds sweep across the flat plains and pass through natural wind corridors in the mountains. Texas generates more electricity from wind than any other state, with massive turbine farms stretching across West Texas and the Panhandle. On windy days, these farms produce more power than some entire nations. Fact 39. The Gulf Coast contains natural tar pits. Along the shoreline near the Gulf, sticky black asphalt seeps up from underground deposits. These natural tar pits are similar to the famous La Brea tar pits in California, trapping everything from ancient insects to modern debris. The petroleum-rich geology beneath the Gulf Coast is literally bubbling to the surface, creating bizarre, sticky patches along otherwise sandy beaches. Fact 38. Salt domes under the Gulf-shaped coastal land. Deep beneath the Texas coast, massive pillars of ancient salt are slowly rising through layers of sediment. These salt domes, some miles tall, push the seafloor upward, creating underwater ridges and shallow bays. They also trap oil and natural gas, making them economically critical. The geography of the entire coastal region, from Galveston Bay to Corpus Christi, is shaped by these hidden salt giants. Fact 37. The Rio Grande once flowed to the Gulf through a different route. Millions of years ago, geological uplift and tectonic shifts diverted the river's course. The modern path through Big Bend and along the border is relatively recent in geological terms. Ancient river channels, now dry and buried, trace the ghost routes the Rio Grande once followed, revealing a landscape that has been repeatedly rewritten by shifting land and changing climate. Fact 36. The Pecos River carved canyons as deep as 400 feet. The Pecos, a deceptively modest river in the desert, has the power to slice through solid rock. Over millions of years, it has carved dramatic gorges through West Texas, creating sheer walled canyons that rival anything in the Southwest. The river's name comes from a Native American word meaning place of water, a poetic irony for a waterway flowing through one of the driest regions in the state. Fact 35. Texas once had active glaciers, but only underground. During the last ice age, Texas was too far south for surface glaciers, but underground, the story was different. Ancient river channels buried beneath the high plains filled with frozen sediment, creating subterranean ice formations. These ice age relics have long since melted, but they left behind strange buried valleys and collapsed zones that still influence groundwater flow today. Fact 34. Meteor crater near Odessa is 550 feet wide. This impact crater, formed thousands of years ago, is one of the oldest confirmed meteorite sites in North America. The crater has been partially filled in by wind-blown sediment, but its circular rim is still visible. Fragments of the iron meteorite that created it have been found scattered across the area, proof that West Texas was once the target of a cosmic collision. Fact 33. The Llano Estacado is so flat it feels infinite. Early Spanish explorers called it the Staked Plains because they had to drive stakes into the ground to mark their path. There were no trees, hills, or landmarks, just an endless, featureless horizon in every direction. This high plains plateau is one of the flattest large landscapes on Earth, capped with a layer of erosion-resistant caliche rock that gives it an almost artificial smoothness. Fact 32. An inland sand sea hides near Amarillo, along the Canadian River. Wind-swept dunes form a miniature Sahara in the heart of the Panhandle. These dunes, sculpted by ancient winds during drier climatic periods, shift and migrate even today. The landscape feels surreal, a pocket of true desert hiding in the middle of cattle country, shaped by the same forces that created the great sand seas of Africa. Fact 31. The Chisos Mountains in Big Bend are a sky island. Surrounded by desert on all sides, the Chisos rise high enough to create their own cooler, wetter microclimate. This isolation has allowed species to evolve here that exist nowhere else on Earth. The mountains are an ecological island in a sea of Chihuahuan desert, a refuge for plants and animals that would otherwise have vanished from Texas entirely. Fact 30. Snow regularly falls in the Guadalupe Mountains. At over 8,000 feet elevation, these peaks sit high enough to experience true alpine conditions. Winter storms blanket the ridges with snow, and temperatures can plunge well below freezing even when the desert valleys below are mild. This creates a dramatic climate divide, where you can experience 3 different climate zones in a single day's hike. Fact 29. Texas has more tornadoes than any other state. The collision of warm, moist Gulf air with dry continental air from the plains creates the perfect breeding ground for supercell thunderstorms. Every spring, Tornado Alley roars to life across North Texas, producing dozens of violent tornadoes. The state's flat geography offers no barriers to slow the storms, making Texas ground zero for some of the most powerful twisters on Earth. Fact 28. Caprock canyons reveal ancient red Permian sandstone. The canyon walls glow crimson at sunset, their color coming from oxidized iron minerals embedded in the rock. These formations date back over 250 million years to the Permian period, when Texas was part of a vast desert landscape. Today, the canyons are home to the state's only bison herd, roaming the same red rock corridors their ancestors crossed thousands of years ago. Fact 27. Palo Duro Canyon is the second largest canyon in the United States. Stretching over 120 miles long and plunging 800 feet deep, it's often called the Grand Canyon of Texas. The Prairie Dog Town Fork Red River carved this immense chasm over millions of years, exposing layers of colorful rock that tell the story of ancient seas, deserts, and river deltas. Standing on the rim, the scale is almost overwhelming. Fact 26. The High Plains were once buffalo country. Before European settlement, millions of bison roamed the flat grasslands of the Panhandle. The plains' flatness comes from an ancient plateau capped with caliche, a concrete hard layer of calcium carbonate deposited by evaporating groundwater. This resistant cap protected the plateau from erosion, creating the perfect grazing land for massive herds that once stretched to the horizon. Fact 25. Hurricanes literally reshape the Texas coast. Each major storm that slams into the Gulf Coast doesn't just destroy, it rebuilds. Hurricane force waves move sandbars, carve new channels, and pile up sand dunes overnight. Barrier islands shift and reshape with every storm cycle. Maps drawn before a major hurricane are often obsolete afterward, forcing cartographers to redraw the coastline from scratch. Fact 24. There's an island ghost town beneath the Gulf. Indianola was once one of Texas's busiest ports, a thriving city on the coast. Then came the hurricanes. The catastrophic 1,875 storm destroyed much of the town, and an 1,886 hurricane finished the job, erasing Indianola from the map. Today, the ruins lie submerged beneath the waves, a reminder of the Gulf's power to reclaim what it wants. Fact 23. Texas's coastline is slowly sinking. Due to sediment compaction, groundwater extraction, and rising sea levels, parts of the Texas coast are subsiding by about an inch per decade. Galveston, Corpus Christi, and other coastal cities are fighting a losing battle against the rising water. What was dry land a century ago is now underwater, and the process is accelerating. Fact 22. Padre Island is the world's longest undeveloped barrier island. Stretching over 110 miles along the Gulf, Padre Island is a wild, wind-swept ribbon of sand that protects the mainland from storms. Unlike other barrier islands, much of it remains undeveloped, offering a rare glimpse of what the Texas coast looked like before human settlement. Sea turtles still nest on its beaches, and its dunes shift with every storm. Fact 21. Sand dunes in Monahans shift like a living desert. These dunes, some over 70 feet tall, migrate several feet per year under the relentless West Texas winds. The sand is incredibly fine, almost powdery, and creates a landscape that feels like stepping into the Sahara. The dune field covers thousands of acres, a miniature desert ecosystem thriving in the middle of oil country. Fact 20. Kingsville sits on one of the largest ranches in the world. The King Ranch covers over 825,000 acres, an area larger than the entire state of Rhode Island. Its size is a direct product of Texas geography: flat, semi-arid land, perfect for cattle grazing, but too harsh for traditional farming. The ranch is so large it has its own weather patterns, zip codes, and ecosystems. Fact 19. Lake Travis and other reservoirs are human-made. Nearly every major lake in Texas was created by damming rivers for flood control, drinking water, and hydroelectric power. Natural lakes are extremely rare. These artificial reservoirs fundamentally change the Texas landscape, creating new ecosystems and permanently altering river flows. Without them, modern Texas cities would struggle to survive. Fact 18. Caddo Lake is the only natural lake of significant size in Texas. Formed by a massive logjam on the Red River centuries ago, Caddo Lake is a sprawling maze of cypress trees, Spanish moss, and narrow waterways. It's the only place in Texas that feels like the Deep South, a watery wilderness on the Louisiana border that has remained largely unchanged for hundreds of years. Fact 17. The blue hole near Wimberley glows turquoise from limestone refraction. This natural swimming hole gets its otherworldly color from sunlight passing through the ultra-clear spring water and reflecting off the white limestone bottom. The color shifts throughout the day, from emerald green in the morning to deep turquoise at noon. It's one of the most photographed natural features in the hill country. Fact 16. Jacob's Well is one of the deepest underwater caverns in the United States. Divers have explored over 140 feet down into this artesian spring, descending through narrow passages into vast submerged chambers. The well has claimed the lives of several divers who ventured too deep into its labyrinth. It's a beautiful but dangerous window into the vast aquifer system beneath Central Texas. Fact 15. San Marcos Springs have flowed continuously for 10,000 years. Archaeological evidence shows that Paleo-Indians lived beside these springs, relying on their constant flow for survival. The springs pump out millions of gallons of crystal clear water daily, fed by the massive Edwards Aquifer. They've never stopped flowing, even during the worst droughts, making them one of the most reliable water sources in Texas history. Fact 14. The Edwards Aquifer supplies water to over 2 million people. Rain that falls on the hill country seeps into porous limestone and travels underground for miles, before resurfacing as springs in San Antonio, Austin, and beyond. This natural filtration system provides some of the purest drinking water in the country. Without the Edwards Aquifer, Central Texas would be uninhabitable at its current population. Fact 13. The Texas Hill Country sits on a fossilized sea floor. Walk through the hills around Austin or Fredericksburg and you're walking on ancient ocean bottom. The limestone beneath your feet is packed with fossilized sea urchins, coral, and shells from a tropical sea that covered Texas 100 million years ago. Every cliff face and creek bed tells the story of a time when this land was underwater. Fact 12. Enchanted Rock is an exposed pink granite batholith. This massive dome of solid granite formed miles underground as molten rock slowly cooled. Over millions of years, softer overlying rock eroded away, exposing the hard granite core. Today, it rises over 400 feet above the surrounding hill country, a giant pink island in a sea of limestone, glowing rose-colored in the sunset. Fact 11. A prehistoric reef forms today's Guadalupe Mountains. These jagged peaks are the fossilized remains of a 260-million-year-old barrier reef that once thrived in a tropical sea. The Capitan Reef, as geologists call it, is one of the best preserved ancient reefs on Earth. When you hike to Guadalupe Peak, you're climbing a wall of compacted coral, sponges, and algae that once teemed with marine life. Fact 10. Less than 10% of Texas is true desert. Despite the stereotype, most of Texas is not desert. The state contains pine forests in the east, prairies in the center, mountains in the west, and coastal wetlands along the Gulf. Only the far western regions qualify as true desert. Texas is one of the most ecologically diverse places in North America, with habitats ranging from swamp to alpine tundra. Fact 9. Texas has 11 distinct ecoregions. From the piney woods of East Texas to the Chihuahuan Desert of the West, the state encompasses an astonishing variety of ecosystems. You can drive from bayou to mountain to plains in a single day. This diversity is the result of Texas's size, varied topography, and position at the crossroads of multiple climate zones. Fact 8. There's a river that crosses itself. Near Pecos, an old irrigation canal inadvertently caused the river to loop back and intersect its own channel, creating one of the only rivers on Earth that literally crosses over itself. The phenomenon is a bizarre accident of human engineering and natural hydrology, a geographic oddity that still confuses mapmakers. Fact 7. The Rio Grande defines 1,254 miles of Texas border, but it moves. The river is not a static line. It shifts its channel, carves new meanders, and occasionally jumps to a completely new path. This has caused decades of boundary disputes with Mexico, with towns and farms finding themselves on the wrong side of the river after a flood. The border is alive, constantly rewriting itself. Fact 6. Big Bend National Park is larger than the entire state of Rhode Island, covering over 800,000 acres. It's one of the largest and most remote national parks in the lower 48. The Rio Grande has carved canyons here that plunge over 1,500 feet deep, creating some of the most dramatic scenery in North America. Standing on the rim, you can see Mexico, mountains, desert, and river all at once. Fact 5. Guadalupe Peak is higher than any skyscraper in Texas. At 8,751 feet above sea level, it's the highest point in the state, earning the nickname Top of Texas. On a clear day, you can see over 100 miles in every direction. The peak is part of an ancient reef system, thrust upward by tectonic forces, a mountain built from the bones of an extinct ocean. Fact 4. Round Top Mountain hides rare earth metals. Beneath this unassuming hill in West Texas lies one of the largest deposits of heavy rare earth elements in North America. These metals, essential for modern electronics and green energy technology, are usually found in places like China. The discovery could make Texas a major player in the global tech supply chain. Fact 3. You can still see ancient volcanoes in Texas. Pilot Knob near Austin is an 80-million-year-old volcanic plug, the solidified magma core of an extinct volcano. Paisano Volcano in West Texas is another relic from when the region was geologically active. These quiet hills are the ghosts of a fiery past, proof that Texas once had lava flows and eruptions. Fact 2. The Balcones Fault divides Texas in half. This massive geological boundary runs from Del Rio to the Red River, marking the point where the ancient rocky Edwards Plateau suddenly drops into the flat coastal plains. The fault is so pronounced you can see it from space, a visible line where the landscape changes instantly. East of the fault, the land is flat and sedimentary. West of the fault, it's rugged and limestone. Fact 1. Texas was once underwater. During the Cretaceous period, roughly 100 million years ago, the entire state sat beneath a warm, shallow inland sea. Marine reptiles swam where Dallas now stands, and coral reefs thrived in what is now West Texas. The limestone, chalk, and fossils found across the state are the compressed remains of that ancient ocean, a reminder that the Lone Star State was once the sea floor of a lost world. From buried forests and shifting rivers to rising mountains and sinking coasts, Texas is a masterclass in how geology, climate, and time shape a landscape on an epic scale. Which Texas fact blew your mind? Drop a comment below and subscribe for more geography stories from the wildest places on Earth.